The sprint weekend in Qatar is ahead of us, and it seems like there are some massive changes on the circuit that might suit some of the cars that struggled massively here last year. Considering that it's yet another night race in the desert, the temperatures will play a huge role in how the teams will set up their cars. And after the last year's tyre temperature and the mandatory pit stops included, will we see problems after the latest changes for 2024? It's safe to say that Qatar is one of the most controversial races on the grid, mostly because of the new abrasive tarmac as well as the presence of the pyramid curbs. But the latter one won't be an issue anymore for the drivers. Last year, the damage that these curbs caused to the car's tyres was massive, and that is why the FIA consulted with Pirelli and decided to make a change for this year's circuit, restructuring the Misano type curbs that are homologated by both the FIA and the FIM. When talking about it, the FIA wrote an official statement regarding the change of these curbs, stating it was agreed with the circuit to grind down the peak and sharp trailing edges of the Misano-style curbs at several turns in order to reduce the risk of sidewall damage when a car runs wide and rejoins from the direction of the runoff area. The modification was made in agreement with Formula One, and Pirelli was also notified. The big problem with the Misano curbs was the fact that there were microscopic separations in the tyre sidewalls, which were caused by prolonged high-speed contact with the curb's 50mm raised borders. Mario Isola from Pirelli has also spoken about this problem, further adding, "It's not just the geometry of the curbs, because these curbs are used in many other circuits. It's the time and the speed they stay on the curbs that are important." Therefore, several sections in Qatar have been changed, such as the ones in turn 4, 10, as well as the combination of turn 12, 14. To further prevent issues on the track, the organisers have added gravel strips behind the curbs to discourage drivers from pushing the track limits extensively, which is a massive issue not just here in Qatar, but on the other tracks like Austria as well. What these changes are aiming for is to stop the mandatory pit stop that was introduced last year due to the massive tyre issues, where both Pirelli and the FIA agreed that in those circumstances, driving more than 18 laps was way too dangerous, leading to a 3-stop race to ensure safety. Of course, the temperatures are a bit different now, and while many are experiencing that the combination of night and desert will provide cold temperatures like the ones in Las Vegas, the situation is a bit different here in the Middle East. While we are racing in the desert, the temperatures should vary around 20 degrees Celsius, and due to the new asphalt that has been put on this circuit back in 2021, we should be looking at higher temperatures of the tarmac itself. It's darker because it's fresher than the rest of the grid, and that means that it absorbs most of the heat during the day, so there might be a situation in which the temperatures on the track will be similar to the traditional ones despite the colder temperatures at night. Plus, if we're to compare this circuit to the rest of the calendar, we should note one big difference, especially with the Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi ones, who are also driven under the flashlights. The Qatar GP has a huge number of high-speed corners. This means that the lateral loads of the tyres will be experienced for a longer period of time and a greater amount as well, circulating around 5 to 6 G forces. Therefore, if a car struggles with keeping the temperatures in the right operating window, the race pace is going to be disastrous, and this goes even without the pyramid curbs that have been tweaked for this year. Toto Wolff is adamant that the conditions in Qatar should be great for his drivers, and when talking about the W15's chances of scoring high here in the desert, the Austrian went on to say, "The races in Vegas and Qatar couldn't be more different. The Losail International Circuit has many high-speed sections and few, if any, big braking zones. Despite going there later than last year, it will still be very warm. That is in contrast to the cool conditions and many slow-speed sections of Las Vegas. Nevertheless, we're aiming for another strong showing this weekend. The W15 has looked more at home at circuits with lots of high-speed corners, such as Silverstone or Spa. We certainly benefited from the nighttime cold in Las Vegas, but the layout in Qatar should be more favourable to the strengths of our car. We know our competitors will be stronger than they were last weekend, but we will be aiming to get the car in a good window once again and be in the fight at the front. Of course, course, these conditions should be favouring Mercedes, who are parting ways with Hamilton at the end of this season in what is poised to be one of the most emotional races of the year, because at the same race 3 years ago, the Brit infamously lost the 8th record-breaking championship in the last lap. But for that, we will have to wait one more weekend, and right now we have Qatar, who along with the sprint format should present a massive challenge for the drivers and a big opportunity for the lower bracket teams to grab some valuable points on the go. The fight in the midfield is all but over, with Haas and Racing Bulls both scoring points in Vegas while Alpine failed to do so, and the sprint race will be a perfect opportunity to build up on the momentum and make sure to grab as much of the cash prize as possible, which will be pivotal for the next year's development. The tarmac in Qatar, however, is what draws the most attention because there isn't much cloud cover and it has low albedo, which means that solar radiation is very effective on asphalt. There have been interesting situations where road surface temperatures can rise up to 30 degrees Celsius despite the ambient temperature being around 7 degrees Celsius. Plus, what we must not forget is the humidity factor. During the day, high humidity will lower the peak surface temperatures through a process called evaporated cooling. Therefore, more energy is used to heat the water content in the air opposed to the one that is trapped in the road surface. But at night time, this will create an isolation effect, and now that the air holds more heat, it slows the rate at which the surface releases the heat into the air. For those of you who wonder how the humidity levels can be so high in the desert, it's because the Losail circuit is very proximate to sea level. So to conclude it all, if a certain team fails to keep the tyre temperatures at an optimal working temperature, they would have to enter the pit stop more frequently and further lose time on the track, which could be crucial in the battle of the constructors, where only 2 teams are secured in their places, Mercedes and Aston Martin. Of course, Sauber is also here, but we barely talk about their chances of scoring points as they are now heavily focused on 2026 and the Audi takeover. There will be some other interesting situations that we'll be looking out for in Qatar, such as the situation between the Ferrari drivers after the Las Vegas GP. The tension is extremely high between Leclerc and Sainz, and the Monegasque driver has given his team a message that he won't think about the team anymore and will be selfish from now on, which should suggest some heavy battles between these two if they are competitive in Qatar. Of course, the tad colder temperatures kind of provide a bit of disbalanced circumstances for the SF24 to fight for the win, as McLaren and Mercedes are optimistic regarding the combination of high-speed corners and the weather forecast. But be that as it may, the situation between the 2 Ferrari drivers could escalate further, even if they are fighting for 1 point. They have cut down the lead to McLaren in the Constructors' Championship to just 24 points. But what is also very interesting is that Leclerc is now in a fight with Norris for P2 in the drivers' category as well, which is why racing with Sainz in Vegas was very aggravating for him, as he couldn't have taken down more points from the Brit in this category. Only 21 points separate these two, and anything can happen in the last 2 races, especially given the fact that Qatar is a sprint weekend. So with all this in mind, do you think that the changes on the Losail circuit will be beneficial for the F1 grid? And if so, which team do you think will prevail in these circumstances? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to know more about Ricciardo's potential comeback to the sport with Cadillac, make sure to check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.